Welcome, Jerry. Good morning. It is 8:37 and we've resolved our technical difficulties, so I'll call the Committee of the Whole meeting of December 5th to order. We have an agenda in front of us. Are there any additions to that agenda? Seeing none. Councillor Cunningham.
I'll move the agenda as presented.
Thank you. A motion to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. The minutes from the November 21st Committee of the Whole meeting were pre-circulated. Are there any errors, corrections, additions? Can't make the motion here. Okay, thank you, Councillor McGee. Motion to approve the minutes as presented. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously as well. All right, moving on in our agenda, first item of new business is 2.1, the Economic Development Portfolio. Welcome, Mr. Gannon, and whenever you are ready.
Thank you, Reeve and Council. Today, we're here due to a request by Councillor McGee to provide inclusion for an RFD to have conversations with regards to our economic development portfolio, and basically to have an open understanding of what type of efforts are currently happening or plans are going in the background. So we're hoping that today is just an open conversation to gather information and hopefully, you know, find some solutions or some answers to Council's questions, and we'll do our best to try to address them at today's session.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor McGee, did you want to kick this can down the road first, or?
Yes, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I found myself having a lot of questions after the presentation that we had from Drumheller Tourism, and I would love to hear a bit about that relationship and what kind of vision is possible.
Thank you through the chair. I've been fortunate to have been able to work with Travel Alberta and Andy specifically since starting my employment here with Nehill County. Horseshoe Canyon has been one of those areas that we're trying to ensure that we're moving forward with the requirements of the master plan, that was improved in principle, as well as the focus group information to really drive that economic driver for Horseshoe Canyon. We are always moving the economic development portfolio forward by having conversations with stakeholders similar to Andy, trying to find out what appetite, what's available, what's out in the community, what are different proposed projects that other communities are doing, looking at some alignment opportunities. So having those conversations with Andy and understanding that they were working through their own master plan for that regional concept of the Badlands specifically, really started some great conversations of what that looks like and how does it align with our world. Some of the items that we discussed really involved how well they thought our master plan was, and the information that he received from the focus group really kind of narrowed the gap of understanding for him. And that we were going to look at the opportunities as presented and bring it forward to council once those alignments were in place. Similar to the proposed budget this year, where we are looking at a feasibility study for costing for an interpretive center plus washroom, and really starting that potential growth outwards for the Nehill County area. We discussed on what the different opportunities of funding, and in our opinion, we don't want to be, let's say, the doers of performing services in the area. We would love it if we had a partner that would want to perform those services and there was some sort of agreement in place where it was financially benefit for everybody. There seems to be probably, from my understanding through Andy and his connections, that's probably the strongest case that we have for bringing investors and things to the area. Nothing is definitely finalized, and that's the main reason of having these conversations, is creating those opportunities and ensuring that we're aligning with council's strategic direction, coming forward with those plans, and getting them back in front of council to approve forthright and not just in principle, finding some really strategic planning within budget to align with it and look at different resource available opportunities, if it's partnerships, investments, or so forth, to ensure that we're moving that area forward. Similar, our economic development group in Central Alberta are very good at sitting monthly to talk about the different initiatives within their areas. So there's always a fair amount of conversation in the background to move that portfolio, to understand what's happening in the background, to see if there's alignment, to understand what's working, what they don't feel is working and why, and creating that avenue of having opportunity. We're just starting out, but we're really putting those feelers out to those business partners, our provincial partners, our bordering partners, to see on how this alignment can work for everybody all together.
Councillor McGee?
Couple more questions. Thank you. Do you meet with the Tourism Drumheller Committee that comes together?
Our economic development officer does sit on the committee to really focus on ensuring that our voice as Nehill County is heard, and that we understand what the greater opportunity of their plan is, and how we could create potential opportunities for ourselves within that information. It's equally as important, like when we talk to Community Futures on everything that's going on within their partners area, to bring forth that type of opportunity and give them a different perspective, because sometimes that's all that's missing is just a different perspective of where our expectations are as far as our master plans, our guidance documents, and bringing back when there is opportunity of growth to council to say, these are opportunities that are there. This might be for consideration for council, and it's a greater project, and we might want to consider it for what reasons, or what is the resource impact at the same time. So we do try to participate as much as we can. We understand that we are sometimes an army of one in that department, and we are learning. We can only spread the love so much, so we try to make the opportunities count when we participate.
Councillor McGee?
So I just wanted some clarity too of what did you see as the purpose of the presentation?
The presentation was done on two parts. One is for my request. I did have a conversation with Andy and the Drumheller group about a year ago, saying that we wanted to move forward with our Horseshoe Canyon portfolio to be able to create some education of what's happening in the background. and having that conversation and be able to promote that education outwards, I believe gives the right information for council and for our residents to really be able to make good decisions with limited funding that is available, and really give us the opportunity as administration to move forward and be aligned with council with the most accurate information we have available at that time. So we really do try to work with our partners to look at that education portion. It's always good to have our provincial partners and bordering partners come in to say what's happening in their area. And sometimes it's about rebuilding relationships that may be fractured, that need to be rebuilt. So we are continuously trying to find avenues so our customers can be educated, council can be seeing a different point of view of what's happening, and then when we bring things forward to council, they have a greater understanding to that portfolio. We have limited time to do that sometimes, so we try to maximize those opportunities.
Mr. Hogan.
And to build on what Mr. Gannon has said, part of the goal that the county's looking at is how we build those relationships, how we foster those relationships out there. And there is a recognition that, particularly when it comes to Horseshoe Canyon or anything in the area, anything we do out there is going to have regional benefit. And that's anybody we bring out there is going to benefit Drumheller, that sort of thing. But that leads to part of why we want to be involved in those partnerships and that perspective that Mr. Gannon talked about, because administratively, we're clear that council's intent is that Horseshoe Canyon isn't just a Drumheller facility. Horseshoe Canyon needs to drive benefit for Kneehill County. And so we can't be naive to the fact that if you're going to Horseshoe Canyon, you're probably going to Drumheller at some point as well. But how does that canyon have more direct benefit back to Kneehill County? So while we try to build those relationships regionally and work with those regional partners and be in the loop and have those relationships, we are cognizant that the master plan, the focus group, all of those things, and what the county is moving forward are intended to drive Horseshoe Canyon's benefit back to Kneehill County, knowing that everything we do there is going to have some regional positivity as well.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments with regard to where we're at on Horseshoe Canyon and the possible relationship that we have with Drumheller in that area? There is a plan for a conversation specific to Horseshoe Canyon to come to council. Is that not correct?
Through the chair, I know that there is the Growing Kneehill event that's going to be coming back next month, I believe at the Committee of the Whole. But as far as the Horseshoe Canyon, we do have the budgeted item within our within the budget, I'm sorry, that's for the future conversations with council if they choose to go in that direction.
Yeah. So that item that you're referring to was just sort of that, I know, planning, examining what the possibilities might exist for a facility and or other things within the Horseshoe Canyon site itself.
Through the chair, there's a lot involved in that beginning portion of that plan. We're looking at creating an area structure plan. We're looking at revisiting the master plan as it is with the focus group and polishing up a version to bring back to council for approval, and really looking at the feasibility of potential investment, what the cost is to build a facility, and some high-level conception drawings for the interpretive center with high-level costing for them at the same time. So the project really is, in my opinion, a kickstart to see, you know, what are the opportunities out there right now, what is the cost benefit to this, and what available partnerships are out there for council to consider with the funding mechanisms that we bring forward within the end of the project. And that's why we put additional funding in the future, in the following year, just in case the council does decide to move forward. There's a bank of money that's put there for consideration. Do we feel it's the appropriate amount? At this point, interpretive centers can be anywhere between $2 million and $20 million, depending on how you want to build it, and it can go in multiple phases. So there are so many different options and opportunities for this. It's just what would be the flavor of council from the information we bring back.
Okay, and so really that's just a feasibility plan, and then looking at what the options might look like in terms of event space or a multi-event space, washrooms, and all those types of potential possibilities.
Absolutely, and trying to take in serious consideration the information from the focus group and the current master plan that is approved in principle.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Penner.
Not necessarily a question, but just my opinion here. We have an asset. It's known worldwide. I've traveled in the last month to other countries. The worst part about where our asset is, Horseshoe Canyon, is it's in the southeast corner. And so Drumheller is on everybody's mind, not Knee Hill County. And maybe that's our problem for not promoting ourselves enough. Where are we from? We're from Knee Hill County. You know, we got to promote that more as residents and ratepayers. But it was just amazing how many people, even on my tour group, that knew about Horseshoe Canyon, but worldwide it's Drumheller. And I think we have no choice. We have to tag along with the word Drumheller, but we've got to make sure whatever we do, we are really promoting the county, the rest of the county, make sure it's identified what we offer at the rest of the county. So you don't realize the big picture until you leave the county for some time and then visit with people from all over the world, that they do know about Drumheller, and the odd one knows about Horseshoe Canyon. So I think we have an asset, but the worst thing is it's down in a very small corner of the county.
Go ahead, Mr. Gannon.
Thank you very much for that, through the chair. I consider Horseshoe Canyon as well a great asset. It's a beautiful area, and it's a great investment opportunity. It's also a platform if we look at it appropriately and we design it appropriately, that it can showcase the rest of the county, which is how do the future developments in Horseshoe Canyon look? And we need to ensure that aligns with council's vision, just as you expressed in your statement of how do we make Knee Hill County forefront. The Badlands is synonymous for Drumheller, and that is just a marriage that is there because their main area, highest population, is centered within the Badlands. But tourism has no boundaries. And where you go from one place, it goes to another. We just need to link that opportunity and showcase it where there are different places within Knee Hill County, once you leave here, that also create an abundance of opportunity. So it's a matter of showcasing our county and finding avenues of why come to Knee Hill County, what are there other things to see, how do we open those touristic opportunities and create some momentum.
Councillor Penner.
Just furthermore to that, like we've found, bones have been found at the canyon, and someone said, like, why aren't they on display throughout the county, not just at the Drumheller Museum? Things like that, like try to get people to other areas. Even though it was found down there, it could be placed up in the north or whatever. Just make sure we utilize the finds throughout the whole county, not just send them down to the museum. And I know there will be, the originals have to be locked away and things like that, but maybe there can be replicas made or whatever, casts made, yeah.
Through the chair, I'm not going to promise anything, but I've been in conversations with the Drumheller Museum on looking at different opportunities. We share a great partnership with them to help them. And I feel once we move forward with a showcase piece out there, it can showcase what the canyon offers and create opportunity for people to come. But I also feel that it's equally as opportunity to have an interpretive center that shares in the history of Kneehill County and the other opportunities that they may not have known of, but came strictly for the Badlands opportunity and found another jewel. And that's where I'm hoping that we can work with Royal Tyrrell Museum and the wonderful staff there, and our regional partners to see on how we can attract people to showcase outwards and create those opportunities as you've expressed.
Councillor Penner?
And it's great to hear. We do need to work with them. And we just got to make it very loud and clear that this artifact, bone, whatever, came from Kneehill County.
Yes.
That's got to be the bold print, you know, wherever they sit. And even if it's in Calgary, so then people, well, where is Kneehill County? You know, and I would be putting Kneehill County before Horseshoe Canyon. So just to train the mind, but just my thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you for championing the cause of Kneehill County. I mean, it's important that we all do that. So.
And I do, sorry,
Yeah.
Reeve, through the Reeve, I champion our county. We have a wonderful county. You realize until you go out and listen, even through RMA and whatnot else. We do have a good county here, and where we're located, just everything, our staff, everything. So I am a champion of our county.
I think one of the things, like from my point of view, that although it's difficult to realize and get your mind wrapped around, any tourism development that we do within Kneehill County will benefit our urban partners. Because ultimately the meals that are bought and the gasoline and the other things that support people traveling and investigating Kneehill County are not necessarily bought within our boundaries. They're bought within our urban partners. And so that's, to me, that's one of the things that, in terms of the whole conversation around specifically Horseshoe Canyon, but in a greater conversation regarding Kneehill, that when we look at tourism development, we should be talking to whatever urban partners that we have to say there is benefit and spin-on. And I know the tendency at Horseshoe Canyon tends to take that focus very much drumheller, but we can push back against that somewhat, but ultimately Mr. Gannon's correct. When they're going for ice cream or they're going to buy gasoline or they're going to go to Tyrrell Museum, they're going to go see Wayne or those kind of things that are outside of our county. But what we can do is hope that if they're going to see Tyrrell and they're coming from the north and they're not going by Horseshoe Canyon, maybe we can pull them out into Horseshoe Canyon. And so how do we work that partnership that it benefits both ways? And that's always the tricky one, right? It's not like we have a proliferation of grocery stores and gas stations within Kneehill County specific. Go ahead, Councillor Penner.
And I think we have to look even broader, and it's great that we have a staff member that's working on economic development. It's not just the people going through, it's the tour groups. We've got to make sure we jump on board with those tour groups, and because they'll go to Drumheller, no problem. Drumheller is on the map. And we got to make sure that, especially the agricultural tours, that they're hitting the county, but you also promote the recreational side of it too on any of these tours, and not just doing just agriculture. And it might be a partnership we have with the Calgary Stampede or whoever does the rural tours. We got to try and reach out to these tour companies to really promote ourselves as Kneehill County, because they're going to go to Drumheller or wherever to stay for their accommodation. But I honestly want us to go further with our economic development part of it.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor McGee.
Thank you for that. I strongly agree with you. And when I was watching the presentation from Drumheller, I was thinking, you know, we easily could have a very similar presentation about Kneehill. And I believe there was a lot of background work done in that capacity through the partnership and through our previous economic development personnel when they were here. And so this story for me is way bigger than Horseshoe Canyon. And there's a huge amount of vision and details, I think, that we're dancing around as opposed to constructively making part of this process. Having said that, I recognize, oh my gosh, my dreams would mean you would need 4 more staff, and that's, outrageous. So where we find that balance and how to find that all-encompassing vision and how we can piece it into what's realistic for us, I think needs to have more conversation, because I think we had great momentum a couple of years ago, and a few of those details have got lost in it. And I just really appreciate your conversation today, Kevin, because I feel like I'm a little bit confused about which direction we're going and how that all fit. And this is helping a lot.
Go ahead, Mr. Gannon.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate all the efforts of the individuals who have worked here and do work here. And we also did see a need, and one of the reasons why we went forward and requested through council to have an economic development plan was to actually create that roadmap to ensure that we understood those triggers of where council wanted to go and really put some deliverables ahead to ensure that we're driving the portfolio as your vision dictates. So we're hoping once this economic development plan comes back, it's in line with your expectations. And please note, if it's not, please don't accept it. Please tell us go back to the drawing board until it is what you want. This is your plan, and we want to make sure that it envisions and captures your direction, and we will work our best to ensure that we do that. So if there's something that is not aligning with that plan, or if there's something that just is not where you feel is feasible, I would request that council, redirect us as administration to make those corrections prior to the plan being adopted.
Thank you for that. Any other comments or questions related to Councillor Cunningham, please?
Just a couple from me. I think my fellow council knows sometimes how I feel about plans, so I'm happy that we're having it, but then once that roadmap's there, we need to get the bus on the road, right? Like, because it's great to talk about it, but we need some action. So I would like to see some points. What are we doing to showcase our county? What are we doing to highlight the businesses? I know people do tend to go to Drumheller, so what can we do to try to bring them back this way? I think I had shared with council a really awesome video that Mountain View County did. I would really like to see us do something like that. If you get a chance to watch it, it's great. Really highlights their county. I know we used to do like a business focus. I don't know. I don't think it's been done for a little while, and I'm just wondering if that's something that we're going to bring. I know that it was very well received in the business community, so I'm just wondering too if that's something that we're planning on bringing back.
Thank you through the chair. Everything's an opportunity right now. We've kind of put everything on hiatus except for the Growing Nihil event and the economic development plan to ensure that we're aligned. Our budget for our economic development portfolio is quite small for the initiatives that are portrayed that we'd like to move forward. So we want to make sure that we are capturing all that information for the plan. And I completely agree the deliverables are incredibly important because we need to be fiscally responsible and make sure that those plans are in there for the next 5 years to align with that master plan. As in every plan, the environment changes, and it usually changes in a 5-year cycle. And we need to be adaptive to those changes, but also understanding that we have financial stability in order to create economic opportunities that align with council's vision and requirements. So this plan is very important for administration. It gives us our walking papers, in essence, and then we bring forward on all the approved opportunities from there, and we will be measured on those deliverables. And I'm looking forward to be kept accountable for that portfolio to ensure that we are moving forward as council expects. We will experience some hardships and difficulties. We're looking forward to attacking them with, care and attention and with passion. But like we have said multiple times, we are a department of one, and if those resources are needed to move forward, we will propose to council what those resources are needed, and we will do our very best to ensure that we hit those deliverables every time.
Thank you for that, Councillor Cunningham.
So I do appreciate the Department of One. I know for myself, owning a small business, very small staff, somehow the public relations and media and marketing somehow falls on my plate. So I think sometimes we want to think big picture, but there's so many, like, I guess, smaller things we can do, like Small Business Week. Let's focus on the businesses we have. Let's promote what we have in the county. We've got a pretty active Facebook page. Like, let's focus on, some of those things can be done pretty quickly and pretty economically as well. So I know we always want to do the big thing, but sometimes it's the smaller things that count too, especially for businesses already operating in our communities.
Thank you. Through the chair, that's very important information for me. I'm hoping that council will approve certain budgetary items in future years where we're just running with initiative after initiative after initiative. And those smaller initiatives, if it's within the budget, that we're moving forward with it to promote our businesses internally. With every opportunity, for example, CAPE has promoted different business opportunities, and unfortunately our budget didn't align with offering individuals in our community the opportunity to be part of those presentations, or for us to offer a couple of seats fully funded from the county to ensure we create some momentum. So our aspirations with the economic development portfolio is creating that opportunity and having that funding. So when these things come forward, we are jumping at them as quickly as we can and offering them on a blanket type of aspect of how many seats we can offer for this, how many seats can we offer for that. We do believe in business retention and expansion. It's one of our main precursors within our economic development plan, and we want to ensure that we have the appropriate people at the table to help these businesses. If it's not us, it's our partners, and we're going to find a way to help promote avenues of sustainability within the community, within our business partners. But it all starts with the plan. It all starts with the initiatives, and it really is one of those areas that we need to work with the chambers, work with our individual partners to ensure alignment, and create the opportunity for these businesses to feel that we're there to help. And I think that we need to do a better job at it. It's just going to take a lot more effort and time, and we're looking forward to that challenge.
Thank you. Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you so much for mentioning the chamber, because that was where I was going next. Those are another partnerships and collaborations that can be quite, again, economical, maybe an hour every 2 months. So those are partnerships that I really want to see us strengthen as well, because then it benefits both sides, right?
Thank you.
Okay. Just in this whole conversation, I was sitting here thinking about sort of that reciprocal kind of promotion stuff. So there is a place for a more regional approach to tourism, and that would include our urban partners in both the promotion of what's within the boundaries of Kneehill County, not necessarily specifically in Kneehill County, but within our borders. And then also in terms of maybe some financial support to do that kind of promotion work. And so I'm sure that's being considered. I think we've done a good job with sort of our agripreneur spotlight stuff that we've done, and the promotion of other rural businesses. And so, I don't think we're falling down, but when it's not on the corner of somebody's desk or in the center of somebody's desk, it's, when we had Jackie here, it was really easy because it was her focus and it was in the middle of her desk. But it's like anything, when it gets on the corner of my desk and it's not right in front of me, it's not first and foremost. And so that's why I'm really happy to see what we're doing, Ms. Kester, and the opportunity to move forward here, so.
Through the chair, thank you very much. I'd also like to acknowledge even though that position has been vacant for quite some time, trying to attract the right proponent, and we're very thankful to have Ms. Kester in a developmental role in there, learning. She will develop quickly, and she is great in those partnerships. But I also like to point out that my managers within the community service group have been helping to push this portfolio forward in the absence of individuals. So there's been effort that's been made in the background. It may not be forward focused and right out in your face, but it's really trying to create a strong foundation where that department can flourish and we can offer council the opportunity to see the picture, small or big, and ensure that we're aligned. So I'm very thankful to have that strong team out there that are wearing multiple hats to ensure we can move this forward. So thank you very much for those comments.
Are there any other questions or comments specific to the item in front of us? Anybody have anything else that they would like to ask? I guess my sort of final comment is we look forward to more conversation in this area going forward.
Thank you.
So if there are no other questions at this point, I would look for a motion to receive the economic development report as information. Councillor Cunningham?
I'll move that the committee of the whole report on economic development be received as information.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there any further discussion? Not seeing any, so I'll ask the question. All those in favor? That's carried. And thank you, Mr. Gannon, for being here and presenting the information that was requested. And we look forward to more. The next item on our agenda is the unsightly premises discussion. And so is that you again, Mr. Gannon? You have the
Yes, Reeve.
You have the pleasure.
Yes, Reeve.
Are you good to continue, or would you like a brief break?
I'm good to continue unless you wanted to wait for
Yeah,
Councillor.
I was going to suggest that maybe we take a short break till that
Okay.
Councillor McGee return. So let's take 10 minutes. So we'll say 9:25, and we'll be back. So we're in recess till then. have resolved our technical difficulties, and it is now 9:29, so I'm going to call the meeting back to order. And we now have Deputy Reeve Woodstock and Councillor McGee on video link, so thank you for joining us. So Mr. Gannon, I guess we're back to you. We're at 2.2 on our agenda, unsightly premises. So if you would like to carry that, have at it. Thank you.
Make sure my wonderful red light is on there, Reeve. And thank you very much again, Reeve and Council, for allowing me to come forward as requested through our last council session. The intent today, we did provide a lot of information within the RFD, and the main was just to provide education. And today, for administration, we're hoping to find out what the concerns and issues that you're experiencing through your customers in the county, and then understanding a little bit more of how that looks like, and potentially look at what opportunities there are within the current bylaw, if there are revisions required, or if there's a change in service that is requested from council, to really explore those opportunities to see where we move forward with it. I want to say, on my experience with unsightly premises bylaws, or any type of bylaw, in essence, there's a process, and processes, depending on level of effort from the customers that you're trying to work with, can be quick, can take years depending on the courts or the level of infraction that's out there. So, you know, having one file, seeing that one file went one way and one file went another way, is all determining on the individual pertinent information to those cases. So it's really hard to relate one from the other. However, our process is quite consistent within our peace officer roles and within our planning and development. They both have processes in order to make sure they're hitting those individual areas, and they're doing it consistently in order to represent and defend their process and their actions. So I'm going to open it up to the floor to have some conversation and discussion on where and what concerns council is experiencing, and I look forward to seeing where we go with the unsightly premises.
Okay, thank you for that. So, who wants to be the first to jump in? Boy, how did I know that was going to happen? I see that hand. Councillor Forbes.
I guess the reason why I wanted to have this brought forth is because the last few times we've sat as municipal planning commissions, some of the things that were coming before us had to do with unsightly premises that were adjacent to some of the things that we were approving. I also looked at ours, and the last time it was looked at was 2011, so I think there's some things that could be added to update it a little bit. One of the ones would be, and I don't want it to just be specific to hamlets, I'd also like to see it to encompass the whole entire county. Because I do see that Wheatland and Mountain View do have that. I've looked at both of theirs as well. We don't have a dangerous property, and we do have a few of those in our county that are dangerous properties. We have no description on what a dangerous property is. The warning letters, I don't see that. I know we do warning letters, but I don't see that we have anything in our bylaw that is specific to a warning letter being added, and I know Wheatland has that in theirs. So there is some things I would just like to see updated to be a little more robust to what's actually happening within the borders of our county and our little hamlets currently.
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. Gannon.
Thank you. I can pull that information back and have those conversations with both our planning department and our protective services. There's going to require a lot of fruitful conversation just with the 3 points that you brought up. That really opens a great conversation for potential opportunity and complications. For example, when we want to look at the entire county, you know, we're really going to have to look at the impact and at what level. Because there's a lot of potential derelict buildings, things on property. People may think they're derelict, but that's a cultural aspect of where individuals are. So it's going to really have to envision what the expectations councils are, to what degree are we correcting, and what is considered unsightly. Because it could just be that truck's been sitting on their property for 30 years, and we really have to understand what limitations and what is it impeding, and what levels of service council is going to be looking at. So I just want to say that we can explore absolutely anything, and we'll pull that forward, and we'll bring forward the opportunities and risks to everything that prevails through this review.
Councillor Phopes.
And because I've been looking at the different, our neighbors, at theirs, I mean, we also don't have an accumulation of animal matter in our bylaw, and we should, because we do have places within our borders that are accumulating matter. And so are they doing it in a way that protects the people that live next to them?
Okay. And I guess at this point, what you would be looking for, Mr. Gannon, is feedback on the areas that specifically we might like to see addressed. So.
Absolutely, Reeve, thank you.
Councillor Penner.
Just for clarification, Councillor Forbes, when you talk about accumulating matter, are you just talking about manure, or are you talking about spoiled grain?
Both, because we did at one of my open houses, we did have a ratepayer come from Councillor Whitstock Christie's division, where this is a problem, where grain is being stored and it's rotting in the field, and then the waste is being blown into his yard. So I would like to see that addressed, absolutely.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Penner.
So the questions that I get from the ratepayers of the county in the hamlets is vegetation growth. Now, I know money, age, and health complicate a lot of this stuff, but the residents feel it's not their problem, that there are some levels of restriction pertaining to the landowner, and they're worried because our hamlets, for the most part, are almost like bedroom communities, and so a lot of people are gone during the day, and should a fire start on the tracks or whatever, there's not a lot of people around to get the fire department there pretty quick. So they're worried about that, the vegetation growth within the hamlets. Yes, there are some derelict vehicles and stuff like that they'd like to deal with, but their number one complaint was to do with the vegetation growth on some of the lots within the hamlets, and how can we deal with them. And there's been complaints, because by the process, it's complaint driven for bylaw to come out, and I know they have complained, some of them, and a lot don't like to complain, but what is the process if they don't follow through?
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. Gannon.
Through the chair, those are that's a great comment there. I know vegetation files in urban areas, through my past experiences, are really, as in any bylaw concern, really hard sometimes to manage, and we have to look at the specificity of what we're doing. And the level of enforcement we're looking at doing. So if council wants to think about that in the background of corrective measures versus ticket enforcement, what's that program look like for council moving forward? Because they're two different items, and they have consequences to both programs or potential delays. A lot of the times, from the information I've had some pretty good conversations with our manager of protective services on this, as soon as it goes to enforcement, as far as ticketing or anything like that, the collaboration portion stops. It's usually, okay, the lines are drawn. So, if we go to that type of enforcement action versus a collaboration, I want to just be mindful that when we bring things back to council for consideration of what that program looks like for them. And we have to respect that the peace officers have within their mandate a certain amount of diligence they need to partake in to show that the level of participation or ability to make discretionary calls can be enforced or protected through their mandate. So when we bring these items forward, I just want council to have a consideration of, what that program looks like. We may have it within the bylaw, but what is the expectation from service levels of, are we changing the program to be more enforcement based, or are we expecting more collaboration? Levels of service out here is going to really determine on what we can and can't do with regards to the changes.
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. Hogan.
And through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Gannon made a bunch of the point that I was going to make, is that's part of the direction that we as admin need as part of the discussion as well, is right now, as has been said, the enforcement that is done, or that collaboration, depending on the approach, is done on a complaint basis. So if we put this in the bylaw, what is council's intent around that? And where I'm going with that is that going to be that we are going to be out looking for these things more proactively than not? Either way, there's going to be a resource requirement, because if those tools are there and they're made use of by the communities, we're going to be back in front of you saying, what else has to give? So if we're going to spend more time working on enforcement, that's less time we're going to spend doing traffic control, youth engagement, stuff like that. So that's part of the conversation that'll come to council's way in the future, is what other parts of the pie do you want to shrink for this one to grow?
Councillor Forbes?
So I don't bring this forth to be an enforcement and be the heavy hand of the law. That's not what this was about. This was about making sure that we had the right things in our policy that would deal with warning letters. I would prefer to educate our people, because we don't always know their circumstances. I do, but I also want them to understand, once you've been given this and the time in which you can do what we've asked, that there is a consequence to you ignoring it. Is what I'm basing. I don't want to enforce a bunch of stuff. That's not why I'm doing this. I'm doing it so it reflects what's taking place currently and educating the people that live within our borders about it.
Thank you.
Mr. Gannon?
Thank you very much for that clarification. The conversation that's going to come forward with all this information is, you may see it different at that time depending on what's provided forward. So we're willing to adapt to whatever that program looks like. We're also going to explore in the background operational programs, which means if we're looking at Unsightly premises in an area that, we know the residents are hurting in different areas. We've seen different programs in place where dumpster, large item pickups, different things like that to create a clean community aspect. And we can explore what those potentially can look like with some of the concerns that you have raised. Other communities have adopted, for example, snow removal was a big topic within bylaw. We went out to the community and created the snow angels, which they would go, and especially with individuals that have disability or the elderly, to go do their sidewalks to make sure that it wasn't a concern for those that are more vulnerable within the community. So we can look at program-based approaches as well, but we do understand that, a review of the actual bylaw is the main address here.
So, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Cunningham. No.
Just to kind of expand on what Councillor Forbes said, I do get that question a lot, and like you said, it's kind of through MPC when we are talking about the unsightly premises. I know one that I get quite a bit is in relation to a tiny home. And I know in this instance, the people don't live here full-time, and I know it's kind of what Councillor Penner said, whether it's a bedroom community or people that are living here half the year and overseas or whatever, but there's still a responsibility as an owner to have that property taken care of, whether you live here 2 months, 6 months, or 12 months out of the year. So I'm totally on board with the warning letters and working with people, but there has to be repercussions if it's not followed through with that. I don't know exactly what that is, but we all have a duty to make sure that the properties are taken care of, whether you're part-time, full-time, or in between, so. Because it does affect the people that live around as well, so.
So I guess a question I might have relates to, you did provide us with a number of bylaw enforcement files over the last 5 years, numbers that have been dealt with. So in terms of the process, how successful have we been in terms of just cooperation? And have we ever had to move those to a more heavy-handed level where we actually do some enforcement? So in terms of, I mean, ignore the animal control ones, but, you know, we have bylaw within the county. So I'm assuming the 81 bylaw is within our urbans. The bylaw in the county are our own, and then unsightly property, there's a number of them listed there. And from what I can see, most of them refer to our own hamlets on the unsightlies. So when we've gotten involved with working with those individuals, what level of success are we seeing, and have we had to move them to the enforcement side?
Thank you through the chair. I can't give you exacts, but I know from the essence of the conversation with the protective services manager is that collaboration efforts have worked here. The education has worked here, but it's complaint driven as well. So by the time we get it, the individual or individuals that are complaining are completely upset with how it's gone, right? So, you know, when we try to address and to go there, you know, we're fortunate. We have very approachable peace officers within the organization that really want to work with the community and put the community members at ease to have that conversation of what those rules and those engagements are. So from what I've heard, they've been quite successful. However, we do have a couple of files that have gone the longer route. There's some that are still in court, and they do take significant amount of resources, but the risk is also extremely high on these ones, right? So we want to make sure that when we look at our property files in general, if it's planning and development or peace officer, whichever, you know, the world lives in, most times it goes to the peace officer regardless for what their, some of the efforts of correction are within that area, regardless of working with planning and development. Some files do tend to take the long route. And that's just one of those unfortunate mechanisms in it. And it can be a file where it could be extremely expensive, or just it's a lower Queen's bench type of decision. But those are files that we manage the risk, and we would be coming back to the CAO having conversation because the risk matrix, and council would be aware of those files going forward.
So just as a follow-up, in my mind, part of the education that's being maybe requested here is on how that process actually works.
Yeah.
And so rather than, you know, build up a frustration level for 2, 3, 4 years and say, well, the county's not doing anything, help people to understand that we really only get involved if there's a complaint. And so if there is a property that they feel needs addressing, or there's a situation where, you know, we have high livestock numbers on small acreages and those kind of things, that unless somebody says something, we're not going looking for those. And so if we're going to change our approach where we are going to go looking, that's a whole different ballgame.
Correct.
And so that's part of what I see is in the process of what we need to do is to help our residents understand that the process is actually complaint driven. And not that we're unwilling to deal with them, but we're not looking for them necessarily. And if we are going to do that, that is a change to how we have dealt with them in the past. Go ahead.
Thank you, and through the chair, that's great information and a great comment. When we look at our internal processes, I also want to advise that Our bylaw is separate from our internal processes, and there's a reason for that. Is that each file, as I said earlier, their management is specific to that file management and the requirements of those files. The other aspect to this is if you have your internal process and individuals understand your internal process by the word, those who want to abuse will abuse. So you really try to keep that close to your chest to really understand that you're process driven, your education on the requirements and the level of compliance that's required. Not so much of how we process it or how we do it, because it creates avenues where individuals that do want to, you know, cause potential problems will create problems, and it just makes the file and resources expand. And that's one concern. The more we enact bylaw related issues within the county, and as we address these things, the resources to other areas go down. So these complaints go up, other available services go down, and then when we prioritize our levels within there. So it's a very tight portfolio, as well as with everything else in the county. We're tiny but mighty, and we do everything that we can to ensure that we can hit them when we can, and really aggressively communicate the requirements as far as being proactive communicators to the community of what those requirements are. And maybe some of this is a communication or marketing aspect of educating individuals and doing a little bit more of that as well within our bylaw as we look at doing the corrections.
Councillor Phobes?
I guess one of the questions I get on a regular basis is how many complaints need to be logged before someone does something about it? And that's a legitimate question, because they can log it, but if no one else is logging, are you gonna go and look at it? So how many has to be done before?
Every complaint
Okay,
is reviewed.
okay.
Every single complaint. It does not have a quota.
Councillor Penner?
That is a question I get a lot, and I say that everyone is, doesn't matter whether it's in a hamlet or it's a rural.
Yeah.
I'm not out looking for the people that need to be visited. But it gets to a point where I think the people, once it's been 6 months, 12 months, they've had enough, they need to deal with it. So I think a lot of it, we gotta look back at our wording, you know, in the order of the remedy. But there's the may word. Maybe the may needs to be changed to
Shall.
shall. Exactly. So then there might be, the people that are lodging the complaint, legitimate complaints, feel that it shall be dealt with, not it may be dealt with, it shall. Just some of those little words within there that we as council can say, well, this administration has the direction that they shall comment, that there's a certain amount of time to deal with it, and the process is in there. But I think the wording could change a little bit.
Go ahead, Mr. Gannon.
Thank you, through the chair. So what triggers from this conversation is follow-up. What level of follow-up is required? And then there's confidentiality of files. So some files can be solved immediately. Other files take time to resolve, and that depends on the participant that we're working with, the customer that we're working with. But I can guarantee that we keep stats in every file that is managed. We know the process of that file, where that file is, who's handling it. And again, if the resources are pinched, our follow-up may not be as expedited as what the expectation within the community is. But those files are being managed and ensuring that they're being reviewed as regularly as can be, depending on the level of priority that's out there as well, right? For example, if you have a file that an aggressive dog that is let's say biting individuals versus somebody that hasn't cut their grass, there's definitely a risk analysis that's done within the department to ensure the resources are deployed efficiently and effectively for the protection of the community. So every file is managed, but I guess it's how do we review this backwards to the community, and how do we make it a little bit more? I understand the need for shalls, but I also understand the need for may, depending on the level of clarity of the enforcement issue at hand. And if it says shall, and then the file is not interpreted the same way, that's a communication not only to the person that's being accused of an offense, but also to the person that's accusing, of where the education goes on both sides.
Councillor Phobes?
And that being said, I do trust that the people we have put in place will do that job appropriately. I have full faith on that. They're not going to go and do things they shouldn't be doing. So I do have faith in our peace officers and or anyone who's going out to address these issues that are being logged.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Cunningham?
So this might cross into a conversation for another day, but I guess, Mr. Gannon, when I hear you say resources are pinched, I guess I tend to wonder then, do we have the time available for our people to be providing those services to our urbans? Like, I guess that's just maybe a conversation for another day, but I heard you say something about, well, we went back to the complaint-driven thing, which I think is 100%. I always tell my ratepayers that. I can't be everywhere, neither can the county. So we do rely on your eyes and ears to let us know what's going on, and they usually do. I just wanted to ask you, just out of curiosity, when you mentioned like there's some Queen's Bench type files, are peace officers working in collaboration with the RCMP on those files, or is there much collaboration with the RCMP on those?
Depending on the level or the issue that's in there, it's all determined on what the complaint is or what the issue is that's out there. So without understanding a certain file, I really can't comment on the level of collaboration. We have some where the RCMP has taken a file where normally we felt that that may have been our realm to take over, and since they started, you obviously let them finish and go through that process. But it is a marriage of communication within our wonderful departments that work with us and our peace officers, and we're just quite thankful that we have professionals like we do that collaborate with the RCMP, and the RCMP are very collaborative back with us.
Okay, any other comments or discussion? Mr. Hogan?
Through Mr. Chair, if there's none, then I guess what we'd want to clarify at this point is the process from here. So what we've heard today, I think administratively, is that council would like to see updates to the bylaw. We've heard what some of those are. I'm envisioning that we would likely bring that back at or a discussion around more of those specifics at a committee of the whole meeting. Because there's going to be some guidance we need is when we say, okay, we're going this direction with the bylaw. Is this what you envisioned as council? Is this what you want to achieve the goal? That would give us the ability to, as Mr. Gannon said, there might be some other programs through environmental services and things like that, that we can say, you know what, we can do this. You know, whether it's a hamlet cleanup day or a big ticket item pickup, those types of things. And there'll be a budget attached to that, right? But it gives us the ability to come back and say, you know, we can do this for X resource. Right? Are you interested or not? And council can give us that feedback, and then we can make sure that when we bring back the polished bylaw to you, that it reflects what you want it to. And I guess where I'm going with that, just clarifying the expectation is we're not going to be back on December 12th or the first meeting in January with an updated bylaw, right? Yeah. There'll be some more. Yeah. Okay.
Was
so
there a
there'll be
reason for that?
Yeah. So there'll be some more discussion that we'll likely have at committee of the whole to make sure that what we're developing is what council wants developed.
Yeah. Okay, good. Any other comments? I'll go Councillor Cunningham and then to you, Mr. Gannon.
So yeah, I would love to see you guys have ample time to be able to do this. I think like Councillor Phobes said, like we kind of looked at Wheatland and looked at Mountain View. I think if you guys have the opportunity, and I know it all takes time, but just to maybe talk to a few of our partners and just say like, what are you guys finding working? What hasn't worked well, or just, you know, see in their bylaws, and I not reinvent the wheel, but find out from other people what's working or what's not working.
So it sounds to me like we've opened a file that we're going to work collaboratively on to come to a resolution. Go ahead, Mr. Gannon.
Speaking of collaboratively, I know that it's been really one of the focused areas within my department is how do we collaborate? So there is an opportunity if council wants to do some survey engagements or some engagement within the community to really see what their pinch points are out there. If we're coming forward with a bylaw that seems to be creating a lot of, let's say, conversation in the background, that it would be not great for us to come back and revisit it in a year because we didn't forecast or foresee some of this. So it may offer an opportunity to create an engagement type of opportunity to find exactly what areas, you know, the community you're looking at would like to see corrections within the bylaw as well, and bring that back to future COW for discussion. As well, thank you for bringing up Wheatland and Rocky View County. Is it council's expectation that you want us to do some benchmarking on some of the corrections that are in there?
Councillor Forbes?
I would just like you to do some comparison. I can give you my notes if that'll make it easier for you to find the things where I went looking for them, so you don't have to reinvent that wheel.
Thank you very much. We'll talk directly to those partners and see what pinch points they had, if they can recall. It depends on when the changes were done, because they usually hear a lot of conversation when changes are done. So if they understand what conversations happen, then maybe we can navigate and learn from their successes or their failures in the background.
Councillor Forbes?
I know that Mountain View did theirs in May of this last year. They updated theirs.
Thank you.
This is a bylaw that's had a fairly long life without review, so. Any other comments or questions related to the conversation we're having around the unsightly premises and the bylaw that we're discussing? If not, I would guess be looking for a motion where we recommend to council to request administration to provide further information on unsightly premises and this specific bylaw. Councillor Forbes?
So moved.
Okay. So we have a motion where the Committee of the Whole will recommend to council to request administration to further provide further information on the unsightly premises bylaw. Any further discussion? Again, thank you, Mr. Gannon, for your time and for participating and bringing the information. If not, if there's no further discussion, I'm going to ask the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. All right. We're at the point in time where we have one thing left on our agenda, which is a closed session item. Is there a need for break before we go into closed session? Anyone? Okay. If not, then I would be looking for a motion to go into closed session. Councillor Penner?
Not many of us.
All right, so we have a motion to go into closed session, and it's under Section 19 of FOIP, which is confidential evaluations. And I'm going to ask the question, all those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. So this, well,